mentioned a couple times in the course of this interview, Lisa, about the console market and how the Chinese government is trying to control that. Can you provide us some information on that, please?
Sure. The console market has been restricted since 2000, the year 2000, when this was before the advent of online games in China. And the Chinese government was under the impression that the damage to Chinese youth from playing video games was completely entrenched in the fact that consoles were the vehicle for which these games were distributed to the gamers. So if they were to make consoles illegal, then gamers would no longer be, so involved with playing games, and then that would therefore save the youth from this cultural infiltration of video games. However, then online games happened, and the whole market exploded, and now there are 44 million gamers, and the fact that they've prohibited consoles hasn't slowed anybody down a bit. In addition, about 1.5 million consoles get sold per year in China through the gray market, including hundreds of thousands of Xbox 360 already, and PS3, Nintendo Wii, and the people who buy these games on the gray market either add modification chips to be able to play pirated or gray market games, or they adjust the DVD firmware within the Xbox 360 in order to play pirated games. And there are ways to get around the fact that these games and consoles have been banned in China. The government officials that we've spoken with at Niko Partners have told us that the policy is lagging the market, and that they hope to be able to rescind the prohibition and have consoles be legal. We are estimating perhaps it'll take place in the next several months, and if so, then who knows how open the market will be for Western or Japanese console makers. But the fact is that at some point in time, we are confident the console market will open up again and the prohibition will be lifted.
That really leads us in part 2 or phase 2 of this interview, and that's breaking into the Chinese market. Can you tell us what Western companies are doing now to break into the Chinese market?
Well, those who are truly trying to compete are sitting back and being patient, waiting for some of these regulations to loosen up a bit. At the same time being patient, they are actively and aggressively trying to form partnerships with online game operators or with other organizations within China who can help them understand and penetrate the market with ease. Anybody who's hoping to make a quick buck and have their game be released in 6 months and then make a profit within the next 3 months is fooling themselves. So the companies that are trying to be competitive and enter China are taking the time to understand the market and the quirks, the regulatory system, the gamer preferences. They're testing their games in China. They're doing focus groups in China. They are reading reports about China. They're talking to people in China. They're going to Chinese trade shows such as China Joy or the Game Developer Conference in China that was just last week, I believe, in Shanghai. They are doing a wide range of activities to help them understand and then be able to gradually and at the right time enter the market with their game. They also may be outsourcing some of their development to Chinese studios so that they can get sort of the inside scoop on what will be important to Chinese gamers with the development process. And they are talking to the online game operators who will be their partners about the technical distribution of the games and what bandwidth requirements will be, what type of specs are in place for the PC hardware in the cafes to make sure that their game can really be played to the fullest in that environment.
That's very interesting. What obstacles exist for a Western company to release a title in China, and how can those obstacles be overcome?
The obstacles are plenty. They have everything from the regulations that have been mentioned to a lack of understanding about Chinese gamer preferences, to competition with the other games that are in the pipeline for the online game operators or for any offline game companies, offline game distributors. The challenges are that they would not really understand how to launch a game. They would not really understand the process it takes. They, being the Western company, would not really understand the process it takes to get the game through the online operation channel and through the necessary permits. So the companies are trying to work within, the companies that are successful, I should say, try to work within the confines of all those challenges, and then they just push on until they find success.
Do Western companies have any kind of edge over Chinese companies?
Yeah, I think that they do have a competitive edge. They have an edge in terms of the fact that the games that are released in the West are probably better known in terms of brand awareness, and they oftentimes are licensed properties from movies or anything else that could be a well-known entity. And Chinese gamers, like any other gamer, are interested in a title or a franchise that they already know, that they've already heard about. And the Gamer Network, through internet or chat or wherever, transcends all national borders. So if a game has been popular in the West, it probably will have a leg up when it releases in China, which will not be instantly after it releases in the West, but after it's penetrated the market for a while and built up quite a strong user base. So the Western companies have that edge because they can say, well, our game's so successful in the United States or Europe or wherever, and now it may be also successful in China. Chinese companies, on the other hand, have the edge that the Chinese government would like to promote its own domestic industry, so the regulations are a little more gracious toward a Chinese development company launching a Chinese game that already suits their content requirements along those lines.
Yeah. Here's something that I know is of interest to Western game development companies. How much of a threat is Chinese outsourcing to Western development companies?
I don't see it as a threat at all. I think that it's actually a benefit to Western game developers because you have in the 44 million gamers a very large base from which to draw and recruit talent for development staff, and the development staff in a Chinese studio then is quite well versed not only in the Chinese game market but just in gaming in general, so that it's lower cost to have development outsourcing in China than it would be to do the same development in the West, specifically in North America or in Europe. So that you can have high quality talent do excellent work at a lower cost, and in the day and age where it's $15 million or whatever it is now to develop a console title for the United States or for the international markets, it's difficult to control the costs of that development by doing it all in the United States. So if you were to outsource some, China is a great place to outsource, and it's by reducing the cost of the game development then, and by doing so with the development staff that is so entrenched in gaming themselves, I think that the Chinese development studios are actually quite beneficial to Western game companies. For the Chinese development studios who are developing games for China, they're a threat in that they're presenting some formidable competition. But competition can be looked at two ways, either as threatening or as quite favorable for the market, and from which the Western companies can learn. And so, in my opinion, there isn't much of a threat there.
That's very interesting.